Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang for Friday. In what month is this? April 12th. And we've got, this may be a somewhat shorter show than usual. I say that now because people were complaining last week when I tried to shut it down at the hour mark. You seem to be gluttons for punishment, so we'll do our best to provide sustenance for your lack of any kind of perspective on how important technology really is. Is that all right? Okay. So welcome, starting on my extreme right, where he belongs, is Kevin Marks. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi there. Nice to see you.
Likewise. To his left, in terms of monitor space, and also politically, is also from the British Isles, is Keith Teare. Welcome, Keith.
Hi. Thank you.
And in our center square today is, from his undisclosed location, John Taschek. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome all.
Okay, great. So, anything going on? Feel free to jump. Scoble is in Coachella, and
is that happening again? It's already Coachella time?
It happens each year.
Yeah, but it just happened like a few months ago, didn't it?
No.
Okay, I have no concept of time.
Okay. You were saying something, Keith?
You know, I think it's been a big week. Facebook Home launched today. You can now buy the phone for $99 from AT&T with a 2-year contract or prison sentence, whichever way you choose to look at it. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about the implications of it. Twitter Music launched today, which is a big deal. Suddenly, Twitter is exposing its intent, which is to be a content company primarily with an audience. It was announced that Flipboard has 500,000 new magazines, 3 million new users in 2 weeks, which is amazing as well. So there's quite a lot going on, not even mentioning Dish wanting to buy T-Mobile.
Well, don't mention it then.
But I think the biggest news of the week was the crash of Bitcoin, which was kind of amazing to watch. I don't fully understand Bitcoin, so maybe Kevin can explain what's going on there, but it's stunning.
I can have a go. I mean, so the point of it is that it's a virtual currency, which we've had lots of those for quite a long time. This one's taken off. The weird thing about it is the way you get new coins is by running computer programs to find solutions to an equation with lots of zeros in them, and that creates a new coin. But that is also how you verify the transaction history. So there's a certain amount of like, oh, Bitcoin's all anonymous. It isn't all anonymous. There is a global transaction history, and everyone with a Bitcoin wallet has a copy of the entire transaction history. But the transaction histories are between unnamed entities that just long strings of hex, basically. So what you can do is say, oh, look, this person has traded a lot with this person. But you can't say you can't map those back to real world identities. That's the sort of anonymous part of it. The thing that the crash business is all about the exchange rate between bitcoins and the dollar, because that's not a very liquid market, and there are only a few people doing that, and so that tends to ramp up and down quite a lot depending on media interest, and also depending on whether the exchanges are working very well. So a big chunk of this price ramp and crash was one of the exchanges collapsing from too much interest, and there's some debate about whether that was a denial of service interest or just lots of people signing up for accounts after they read about it.
So are real people losing real money here? I mean, I've never done it, but can you get some bitcoins and then change them into dollars and then back again?
Yes. Yes, but that's what these markets do. So that's what MTGOX and these other exchanges do. They will let you buy bitcoins for dollars through various means, and then you get a bitcoin, and then you can transfer that to somebody else, or you can go to another exchange and sell it back into dollars again. So a lot of this is in some ways, it's like speculating in a stock. You've got a thing that has a supposed market price, and you're buying and selling it. And if you work in the value, you're used to being paid in something that you're not quite sure what it's going to be worth when you actually have to spend it, because that's what being paid in stock is like. So it's less weird for the tech types, but it is very weird for people who are trying to think of it as a currency. But it's just got a very volatile exchange rate at the moment because it's dominated by the transactions going in and out of it. And there are a lot of people who've been buying it and hoarding it, including apparently the Winklevoss twins, which was the other surreal news this week, is that they've been buying bitcoins and putting the hex strings on zip drives and locking those in safes to make sure they can't be stolen from their computers. So there's a bunch of that speculation going on, but a lot of the sort of ramp ups are driven by media interest. So when an article is written about it, suddenly lots of people will say, "Oh, I'd like to try this experiment. I'll go and buy $10 worth of bitcoins," and that brings up the interest of it.
So I mean, the way I look at it is it's kind of intriguing to me for a number of reasons. The first is I think we're at a moment in history when nation states, and thereby for definition currencies, feel a constraint on human progress, not a benefit for human progress. And all these globalized things that are happening, ICANN is one of them, screwed up as it is. It's kind of nice that it's a global kind of self-help group to run the domain name system. And Bitcoin strikes me as the first ever potentially global currency, that if it was to become credible, people would accept it as a token of payment, you'd have for the first time a form of exchange that was outside the control of governments, which is kind of intriguing and interesting. And then the second reason is I noticed all the VCs started to pile in. Andreessen Horowitz invested in OneCoin yesterday, which is not Bitcoin, but it's Bitcoin-ish. So it feels as if something real's happening here, and I haven't quite yet figured out what it means, but it feels important and it feels interesting.
It seems to me that this is very similar to the idea that something is going to happen. They're going to make gold out of water or something like that. I mean, it just doesn't strike me as something that governments are going to tolerate.
Well, that's the challenge. I mean, the thing about any of these things is you only really know if they were a bubble in hindsight, because the end state is either a crash or stability. So there was, in the same way that speculating in net stocks in the late 90s was clearly a bubble in hindsight, but the challenge is knowing when the thing's actually going to peak.
Yeah, but I mean, the governments have not made a good job of stability over the last 5 years. So I don't really think that's what the choice is. The choice is between governments asserting their right of domain and, the hell with these internet people, basically.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
They have taxation. They have the right of, they have the power of taxation. They can come in and they can say, no, you can't do this.
FinCEN did issue a directive last week saying if you're exchanging money for dollars for bitcoins and back and forth, you need to be paying attention to the money laundering regulations and so on. So they've recognised that that's an issue. But if you're just trading bitcoins for bitcoins, then you're not bound by the government. But that's as soon as you try and turn it back into dollars, that's your issue.
Yeah, but that's like the MPAA self-regulating the rating system for movies. They only do that because they don't want the government to do it.
Yeah, but
that is the government.
But there's another.
MPAA is not the government.
No, but the FinCEN is.
There's another way of thinking about it. Which is, money is just a token of payment, and it's a commodity. Money itself is a commodity. It's just that we all give credit to it because it's issued by governments. And of course, when we lose confidence in governments, money crashes and banks close down.
Have you done your taxes yet, Keith?
I have, actually, last night.
Okay. I rest my case.
No, so I'm not disagreeing. But what I'm saying is, if we say that we can exchange a pound of carrots for $1, that isn't any different than saying we can exchange 2 bitcoins for $1. It's just a commodity. So the issue isn't governments, it's whether people trust it. And I'm prepared to pay $1 for a pound of carrots. Am I prepared to pay $2 for a Bitcoin? And if I am, and I can take that Bitcoin or that pound of carrots and exchange it for tomatoes, it works. And it's outside of any regulatory control. It's just a commodity.
Right.
John?
I mean, I just don't think anyone should be surprised by the demise of this. This is it's an arbitrary, it's a technology-driven thing to bypass the dollars and things like that. But there's already so many currency fluctuations and currency problems in the world that I guess that's why it developed, but that's why it's going to fail too. And if you look at dollars or clams or stones or whatever people used, they actually they were tied to something real. At some point, there was usually around a grouping of people and things like that. But there were some kind of central authority, which is how we kind of, if you look at U.S. currency, it's kind of how it developed with the U.S. Federal Reserve and the gold standards and things like that. There's no basis for it. So why should it last? I mean, what Keith is right. In an ideal world, anything you could have a collection of Legos and trade them for a collection of trees or whatever, but that's such a small.
In an ideal world, Android would support AirPlay, and we would be done with this nonsense. This competition thing, what ridiculous? Who needs competition? Let's just have free stuff.
Well, I don't know. I think Bitcoin was set up from the beginning to be taken over by small groups of people who would just invest in it and try to control some kind of economy, and because there was no regulation behind it, and so open source money doesn't work out that well.
Well, no, but the point of this is it's structured so that you can't actually take control of it except by throwing enormous amounts of computation at it, which is a structural problem as well. It means that it is if you wanted to sit there and throw Amazon Web Services or Google at it, you could take over control of this currency, but you'd have to invest a lot of energy in doing so.
So why would the Winklevi get in there?
Yeah, and why would Andreesen Horowitz get in there?
Because they're following a trend. They're looking at something inflate, and they think they're greater fools. It's like any of these bubbles.
Yeah, they're hedging.
Greater Fools. That's a good name for a band.
I think I'm gonna get that domain right now.
But what? What?
.me, of course.
Greater fool than .me. Yes.
So just out of interest, John, why do you think the VCs are piling in? Because they're usually pretty savvy about long-term trends versus short-term.
I think they felt like they got left out of PayPal early on, and they think of PayPal as kind of an artificial currency, or a step into the direction of this kind of currency, and they probably were going after it that way. But they invest in a lot of companies, and so 90% are going to fail, but 10% make up all the difference.
Right.
Yeah, right. I don't think that this is an investment for the 10%. I think this is I think it's just to take one of these players off the table.
Yeah, I also think that
it's a hedge. I mean, this thing may do something. It's already gone up in value from 10,000 of them to buy a pizza in 2010 to you can exchange one for $100 ish or $200 depending on the time of the day at the moment. So there's a clear ramp there, and the question is, do you put something in this as a hedge? And if you're the kind of people who have lots of money sitting around and want to make sure that you don't miss out on something, then it would make sense to do a bit of that.
There might be another reason that they do it, because if they're developing a lot of technology around there, and it is somewhat open source and some proprietary source code, that code becomes maybe part of the domain of the investor, and that intellectual property then is useful in other areas. So then if they set it up and they know it's going to fail, they'll still win by getting some of the intellectual property that can be used in other sources later on.
That's not a reason. That's an and reason. Not
Well,
to
they also just set up a fund to invest in Google Glass. You know, there's a
is there?
they're basically putting stakes in the ground and saying, here are some interesting things. Come and pitch us around this area, so that to try and attract people who are thinking about stuff, and then they can decide whether they want to invest in them as well.
This is why Google is doing Google Glass. I'm not sure I understand your point.
So Andreessen and Klein KP and Google Ventures this week set up a Google Glass fund to invest in apps for Google Glass.
Oh, you mean like the iPhone fund that was set up?
Yes, exactly like that.
So,
And like the Facebook apps fund.
right. Okay, well, I think we got more out of that than I was hoping.
What about Twitter Music? Twitter Music is kind of...
Why do you say it's an important story?
well, I don't think it's
Number one on
important.
TechMeme, but that doesn't mean...
I don't think it's important as a long-term societal trend or anything like that, but I think it's important for understanding Twitter and what the decision. We've talked a lot in the past about Twitter under the control of Peter Fenton with Dick running things, having decided a long time ago to become a content portal, if you like, with an audience. And to do that, it's important that they package up content and make it consumable in chunks that people care about. And this is the first real, apart from the hashtag pages they did, this seems to be the first real major push. So the big question is it smart? And the second question is, will it work? And the third question is this the right choice? Music, is Twitter really a good place to discover music? And so they made the right choice for what kind of content. And I think the answers to all three are probably no, no, and no. But it's interesting that they chose this.
Well, Keith, what was the name of the company that they bought? It was like Claw Me Back Music or something like that. I don't know the name. Well, it had a name though that they bought in order to create this.
I've forgotten. I'll try and find it out just a minute. Maybe
It wasn't I Forgot.
Yeah, I forgot music. Well, I don't know. I look at when I followed Twitter early on, the people that were really into it were musicians and news. And I think if you look at Twitter and you triangulate the what Twitter was dispatch of news and music, I think it's a really good thing. It makes a lot of sense for dispatching to a wide range of people and people you like a stream of music and things that are interesting to you. I think that it kind of gets right into the data around who's listening to what kind of music and what music is important, what music is coming out. I think it's a pretty interesting thing. I think this will be successful for them.
Well, it's definitely a really good way to understand what the interest graph means, as opposed to the social graph. I mean, if they can do a good job of this by just doing counts, they can probably surface things that are interesting. And if they can find a way to understand you, so that when you go to Twitter Music, what you see isn't the same as what I see, I think they could get to something kind of interesting. But it's very different to what we all thought Twitter was for. And originally, it's not necessarily bad, although I think it's a smaller opportunity. I think it's an interesting opportunity.
Twitter was about real-time messaging about things that were important at a point in time originally, otherwise known as the dispatch of something that was important. And music is one of those things that's really important to people. Now they lost out on the photo thing, so music is another thing that they can supplement, and I think that's why it's going to be successful. I think and if you also look at where Google, I think the most music is mostly listened to on YouTube now, and and there's that other thing, the SoundCloud, which Kevin and I were at mentioning today, I guess. SoundCloud's kind of useless because there's no graph around that. Um,
No, that's
so
not true. There is. I mean, you get to follow people and see their streams, and you've got a stream of music coming in from people you follow. So they're building one there. And
it's
there
so
are,
slow. It's
if you're a
been out for
musician, you have a
years
lot of
now.
followers.
Yeah, but it's been taken over by the Larry Madgeds of the world, who are just posting podcasts and stuff. So I mean, it's
It
lost.
depends who you follow. You see who you choose to see. So you can, when you find a musician and you follow them on SoundCloud, you like to get stuff from them, and you like to get things that they like. So, yes, it's not as strong as Twitter. Twitter is actually very good for musicians, and it's now assumed that you'll do that. And actually, when you sign up for a new Twitter account, they will try really hard to get you following musicians first.
Well, I think SoundCloud started out that way, but if you're a new user, I mean, I've been on it for a while, but I don't follow that many people on but what's displayed is CBS News and technology reports and a lot of podcasts. And once you get into figure out the musicians, the recommendation engine sucks, by the way. But if you look at musicians, you actually find some really great musicians out there that are on SoundCloud, and I like it that way. Twitter, I think, is going to be way better at that. Twitter's going to be able to. You're going to have this real-time collaboration right around the music at the time, and there's going to be a real-time communication around songs, basically. Now, I don't understand exactly what this product's going to do because
it's going to give you some sort of 15-second clip, basically, and then push you
to their site, to a site somewhere.
Well,
they locked it down. I mean, that sucks.
This
too,
is a defensive mechanism because basically everybody's waiting for iRadio, which is going to blow this away. That's my opinion.
Didn't they launch that already? And it
No,
died
they're
on
still
its feet?
negotiating. I mean, I haven't had a chance to actually be prepared for the show, so I haven't read anything in months.
What was that? What was that iTunes thing called? Pong something? That was supposed to do this. The answer
Which company
to
are you now
recommendation.
working for? Oh, that's right, Salesforce. But before that, it was Google, and before that, it was Apple. So who are you sliming?
I'm just, Apple tried this and didn't do it.
No,
SoundCloud has
Ping
built
was never an attempt to do anything. It was
they just shipped
it
it
was
from-
a feature
at random.
inside of their iOS, an early feature.
But going back to John's point,
iRadio. Just let me finish the thought,
Okay.
which is that iRadio, or whatever they're going to call it, is a deal for streaming with the record cartel. And who else is going to do this? Is Twitter going to come up with the money to be able to get more than 15 seconds of a song?
Spotify does it. Spotify already does it.
Spotify already does it. Google Play already does it.
That's right.
YouTube
and
already does it.
Spotify is
Evo does
vulnerable
it.
to Apple jumping in.
I thought of Ping as something that if you had music and you had the Genius and recommendations, you could kind of collaborate. Which is the parallel to me of Ping is Netflix getting into the Facebook, share your movies and stuff like that you're watching. I thought of more like this. I think of Twitter music as something as you're communicating around songs that may or may not be popular at this point. But it's so locked down.
Are they signatories to the to ASCAP or BMI? That's what
They're directing people, just like what they do with news and everything. They direct people to sources of information. They'll never get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's right. By the way, I'm not sure they've missed the photo opportunity because I think there's still opportunity for them to segment content like this across a very wide range of verticals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they've missed it at all. I don't think that however, that pointing at music, which is constrained behind a firewall, which is what all recorded music that the four major cartel owners are signatory to, that is going to only yield to deals, for streaming rights.
Well, if they
Well,
get
that's why SoundCloud's interesting, because SoundCloud isn't that. Because SoundCloud is where you post mixes and your own music and things like that.
And it's great. John's got a song up there, which is fantastic. But
But if you think that Twitter is good for crowdsourced intelligence, really is what it is. If crowdsourced intelligence can also blend with personalized insights into that intelligence that you're going to care about as distinct for the whole world, well, then they move from being able to do the top 10, which anyone can kind of do and isn't very interesting. If you
anyone
crowdsource
can kind
the
of
top,
not do.
well, if you crowdsource the top 10, it's still the top 10. I mean, you could probably do as good a job editorially as you could crowdsourcing, but you can't do as good a job for Steve Gillmor's top 10 or Keith Tiere's top 10. That can only be done by someone like them. If that's what they're doing, it starts being quite interesting.
Well, I think that crowdsourced in terms of music used to have a connotation in our lives that was lost about the time that music died in 1971.
I was drinking at the time. You can't do that.
Bye, bye, Mr. American.
That was Buddy.
Exactly.
That was Buddy Holly, right?
Thank you. You made my point.
Yeah.
Now that was the first time that they said the music died, but Office is dead, and now it's actually coming true, and we do need to get to the media's decision to certify Microsoft as completely screwed, which has developed some motive force in the last couple weeks. The media, not what Microsoft's doing, just how the media is portraying that. But the one thing I wanted to say about when my daughter says, "Did you hear this song?" and I say no, she takes, she goes to YouTube.
Yeah.
There's no rights. Those songs on YouTube are, I don't know how they are allowed. It's often live performances that have been basically people are looking the other way about.
Well, no, but they also have content ID, so that they will do it with collusion with the labels as well. So
to some
if it's
extent,
a music,
yes,
music
absolutely.
release, they'll put something up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a master. It's not a particularly high quality audio. It's
Some are. I mean, if you get the Vivo ones, you get the official releases, but yeah, you do also get recordings from clubs and things as well. Sure.
But to go back to what I was trying to tease out here is that music used to have this import as a social mechanism that was lost, and I don't see Twitter in this current incarnation of what they call music. I don't see them as resuscitating the idea that music is important to our daily lives, except as a form of entertainment which is competing against Netflix.
Well, it's not "Call Me Back" music. That's not the name of it. It was called "We Are Hunted," and that was the name of the company they bought for Twitter music. So we are hunted. I think that kind of appeals to underground music that has no voice, right? And I think Twitter can use that as a promotional vehicle to it. And that Twitter can become a musical provider, just like BMG or whatever. I don't know what exists now. Any of the cartels that own the music.
I think that they have about as much chance as Bitcoin does with countries of becoming a major player in the record business.
I think you're right about that, but I think that the collaboration around music and directing people turns them into a media source themselves for music and interest around music. Which
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say they could. What they could do is build their own music store, either streaming or for sale, and try to cut Apple and Google off. To put themselves between Apple and Google and this content.
This is why the radio thing is going to cut them both off.
I think
Apple is cutting themselves off from the iTunes store by moving to this because, in fact, Spotify is starting to eat their lunch in terms of the kinds of people who use music for more than background.
Well, the thing is, Steve, in order to cut anyone off, you have to be where the user is to start with. And I do think Twitter has a lot of traffic, not as much as it should have. I think their changes over the last year have reduced their impact quite a lot. But they still have a lot of traffic, and if they can own just where that traffic goes, that's probably a decent-sized business.
Go ahead, John. You were saying something?
Well, no, I don't remember what I was saying, but I think that I was trying to make a parallel with Twitter and new music, where it's really about discovering. Twitter's about discovery. It's about discovering music, and it's I think that helps. I think that helps music.
Okay.
Are we being carpet bombed?
No, we're being ignored.
So do you think, should we anticipate that this is just the first vertical that Twitter puts up, and that it is now absolutely trying to become Yahoo, the place where you discover content and subjects and topics, and they're going to try and monetize that? I remember Peter Fenton saying to me that Twitter is like a TV where there's only 2 channels, and as you turn the knob, all you get is static, and what they need to do is tune it in, so they've got all the different channels. Which was a year and a half ago, by the way, or maybe even 2 years ago. It feels like this is the first product of that way of thinking.
Well, I think that that's probably correct, but I don't know that that whatever this is, by starting with music, I think they're sort of walking into the teeth of the cartel, shutting them down. And I think Apple is using that simultaneously, obviously not just Twitter, but Facebook as well, as a mechanism for establishing some sort of a model around streaming of music.
Yeah, I think Apple holds a lot of cards, because think about myself, what it's got. Firstly, it's got all of my music. Not all of it, because it only allows you to put 20,000 or 25,000, and I've got more than that. So I subdivided my music, and I put the most interesting 25,000 on their cloud, so that I can play it everywhere. Secondly, it's the place that I watch TV shows that I can't get on Netflix, and I'm even starting to use it for Netflix more and more. So from a media point of view, music or movies or TV shows, Apple has a lot of cards, and I don't expect any of these players, Twitter included, to be much more than a small blip on that, no matter what Apple does, even if they don't do iRadio. And if they do...
Wouldn't Twitter just point people into an iTunes?
They would, but how do they monetize that? All the money would go to Apple.
You get a referral fee, but...
Yeah, but all the money will go to the record companies, actually.
I mean, Apple doesn't make much out of that.
Apple sells hardware. That's what they do.
Yep.
But Twitter could be if it's a distribution, then they could have promoted bands and things like that.
I think you're right. I think that they can become, essentially an advertising house.
I think that's what they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
They're already an arm of
sense.
Promotion for the music industry, and this is extending that. Sure.
Yes, but the problem that the music industry has is that these 15-second. I mean, you're talking about, what are these things called? Touch. Where you get something and you put it on your phone.
Ringtone.
Ringtone. That's it. I mean, we're talking ringtones here. Who cares about ringtones?
Well, no, but the thing is, you can already link to SoundCloud, you can already link to YouTube, you can already link to Google Play and get this stuff, and you can, and there's various, like, release this to your friends, or show the whole thing, or buy it, and stuff.
Right, but
so
the real
looking out to Twitter makes sense. I'm not sure there's anything magical or new about it. The thing that does make sense for them is the what's trending now. Though if they do it now, they'll find what's trending is Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, and I'm in Love with Margaret Thatcher, because there's a meme war going on in the UK pop charts at the moment. But
I hear it's going to be #1.
There's a meme. So Ding Dong the Witch is Dead is probably going to be number one because the papers made a fuss about it. But now the Tories are fighting back by buying I'm in Love with Margaret Thatcher, which is a joke punk record from 1980 or something, and trying to get that up the charts as well. So I'm watching all the British media and political people in my Twitter feed having a meme war about this, which is highly amusing. But it's because the chart ranking in the UK is still a thing. It's still it's broadcast Sunday night on the BBC, and people still think it means something. If you're my age, I'm sure the people under 25 don't care about it because they're all listening to a very diverse sort of thing. And the fact that you can game it by getting a bunch of people to buy a song from The Wizard of Oz is a sign that it's not much of a chart anymore.
No, this is what happened. This is what happened.
Itsy
Itsy
in your
bitsy
background?
yellow polka dot bikini. This was the kind of music that occurred just that the Beatles came and completely overthrew. So the best news I've heard yet is the possibility that we are entering such a period of sludge that we will be rescued from it by some creative people. Thoughts? Analysis?
Sorry. They've got the hashtag Grantham style. Sorry, that's making me laugh.
I mean, the Minnie Riperton reference? Or
Minnie Riperton. No, I can't. The birds sound like Minnie Riperton in the background.
That's what only you would get that.
So
joke.
I think that this is very good for Twitter because the more data types that they participate in, the better they look like Facebook. Only they actually do have a real-time, news information market as opposed to an algorithmic one that's based on a privacy sharing model that nobody understands.
Well, the thing is that the musicians are already on Twitter and talking to their fans.
I mean,
saying when
the musicians were on MySpace, and look what happened there. So what that the musicians are on? It's not the musicians that are having conversations that are all that fascinating. It's the people that consume the creative arts and drive the production and the storylines of more creative arts. I mean, it's the binge viewing model is what needs to happen in music, and right now this is not happening. And that's why I say that what Apple's doing with streaming, I think, is going to create a whole different landscape.
I think streaming's a red herring. I think we've already got adequate ways of playing all these songs.
Yeah, but that's what everybody says. But what hard drive am I using?
You're not.
No, it's everything went to the cloud. So
yeah, but the
cloud's a red herring. I don't think so.
We've got 5 different services to keep music on in the cloud. Already, we don't need another one.
No,
I've got my songs on Apple and Google and
it's about
SoundCloud.
Shelf space. There used to be these things called record stores. You notice that they're gone, right? I mean, they're physically just not. They don't exist anymore. It went to the bookstores, and there was a record section. Now the bookstores are gone.
Yep.
All right. So the transition is to streaming. In other words, you do not own the content.
This cloud thing may take off, is what you're saying.
I do. I'm betting on it, actually.
You're betting your children's future on it.
Well, I mean, we are the people of our cumulative generation and going right up to the present generation. We were the ones that insisted that there was no way that they were going to pry our CDs and our DVDs and all that stuff from our, hands. The fact is that I don't trust removable media anymore. I have a MacBook Air. It doesn't have a DVD drive. Not only do I not want it, I don't want to consume or invest in media that presumes that.
So if the Google Chromebook played AirPlay, you'd be a total Google convert?
Totally. I told you at the beginning. Let's, in a perfect world, right?
Somebody should write a DLNA to AirPlay adapter.
And I'm pretty sure
Not a
AirPlay's
bad idea.
Isn't AirPlay open source? Kevin would know this, but I think
No.
you can.
No, totally not.
Or
No, it's not.
license,
It's
freely
locked down.
license.
They
freely
talked about
licensable.
released. No, they
Is it
talked
le-
about releasing APIs, but so far hasn't happened, right?
Yeah, it's been reverse engineered by a few people, but it's not. You've got to license it from Apple, and you've got to be a registered partner, and you've got to satisfy you have a reason to do it. What are they called? Double Twist has reverse engineered it, so if you use Double Twist on Android, it'll play to AirPlay, but I think only music, not video.
So is the Apple license free as long as you sign the agreement, or do you have to pay?
I'm not sure. I think you have to pay. It's a secret agreement and a secret license, so who knows? It's a biz dev deal.
What is the technology behind AirPlay? Is it kind of like DLNA on steroids type stuff, or what is it?
It's DAP basically. It's basically HTTP. You just open a connection to the thing and send it a stream of data locally.
But it's a massive amount of data. They're using compression. Where's their intellectual property?
Yeah, they're using compression. I mean, but you don't. It's local Wi-Fi. You've got lots of bandwidth. You can
Yeah,
send
this is the
you can send
Bonjour service.
It's related to that, yeah. But Bonjour is the general ZeroConf stuff. Part of that was discovering nearby things, and then sending media over the wire was something that was built when this was first shipped. And the difference is that it is it's push rather than pull. So the previous thing was you give it a playlist and it pulls it from you. That the AirPlay stuff is much more push. You're actually sending data into the stream. It is compressed. It's H.264 for video and AAC for audio, as far as I know. Though the audio they were using the uncompressed audio. The Apple 2-to-1. No, the Apple 2-to-1 whatever that's called, Apple Double, for the audio before that. But I think for the video stuff, they're using 264 and
Parenthetically,
AC.
did anyone see the number of minutes that people are watching Netflix?
Yeah, unbelievable.
87 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean,
think
they
about
made the
it.
point that if Netflix was a TV network, it would be the biggest one.
Yeah,
already.
exactly. I mean, in this case, it is a zero-sum game. They're taking share away from the networks.
Right. I mean, sure. Finished watching House of Cards this week, which means I didn't watch any network
Well,
TV.
I'm watching the only decent network show of the last 10 years, constantly, West Wing. But seriously,
Downton Abbey.
this is where this is going to break. It's going to be when somebody, I mean, as we've said before, House of Cards is an example of a startup on this new network. Kevin Spacey has points rather than taking. He has ownership of the first, the second season is. He owns this for 2 years.
Was he paid in bitcoins?
Good point. But
No, it's definitely all they need to do is get a couple of the major shows and switch them over. Game of Thrones, those things, the only things that people keep TV for, and then figure out how to get something like the Super Bowl or something big. They can start smaller and get bigger, and then there's no need to have anything else. Really, I mean, why pay it? There's a lot of people who are moving over to free themselves of cable, free themselves of satellite. I'm not there yet, but there are a lot of people doing it.
I would do it if I could get news. There is no internet news network that competes with CNN and the others, and I would want that. And I think there's a big opening in the market for someone to do that. And if I could get live soccer from England, I would drop it right now.
Oh yeah, well you have to go through Fox to get that now.
Well, NBC have bought the rights. If NBC do a deal with Apple and put live soccer on Apple TV, I'm done.
NBC has the rights to the major, but the Fox Soccer channel is the only thing that plays all of them.
But they just announced they're closing Fox Soccer down because NBC beat them for the rights next year.
No kidding. Well, that's great.
Well, all I know is that in the last 3 weeks, we've started, we've missed shows that we wanted to sample, like what was that? Moving Back In With Your Parents Forever, or whatever the name of that show was, and it was okay, but it was terrible. But we found that out, which was important, by going and using AirPlay to just bump it up from the ABC site with the Mac and with the iPad Mini, push it up to the TV, and we watched it. It wasn't full screen; it was a smaller screen, but it was completely adequate to be able to sort of scan this thing, check it out. More and more, we're using AirPlay as a major channel of our consumption, and when the music business moves over to that, it's going to be a big deal, because right now it's around the media. Even if it's just downloaded, if you go to iTunes and you download this thing, you've got something that's on your hard drive which you don't need. You'd like to get it off your hard drive, and as you said, Keith, you've already put 25% of your music. I don't know how you're doing that. Are you using Match?
Yeah, 25,000 songs. It's about 50% of my music.
Okay, so you're already using Match to do that, but what Match is an intermediate strategy, in my opinion, because what they're really doing is they're saying, we'll store it for you, we'll manage it, we'll make sure it doesn't go away, it won't disappear, same thing with your pictures, same thing with your video, you're all set. Okay, that's a streaming model. It's just that they haven't moved us to the stream yet. That's why I think this is a really huge deal, because once a critical mass of engaged users is in this environment, then the kind of things that you and Taschek are talking about in terms of creativity, new. What about my daughter? My youngest daughter watches. What's the guy's name? Philip. Philip somebody on YouTube.
Philip Phillips? The guy who writes Home? Saying Home?
No, it's a guy who does a YouTube show. It's a podcast, basically. And it's a newsy thing. And she's getting her news information from this guy. She talks about, like, something that's happening in the world, and it's filtered through this guy, Philip. So these people are going to become, obviously, the major media will absorb some of these guys, offer them contracts, try and what the hell is that?
That's the major media ringing your bell.
Is that Windows 8?
That's not me.
Okay.
It was my iPhone telling me I've got a text.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, that's
It
jarring.
sounded so happy. So, hey, you just paid your taxes. Congratulations.
No, you just got a refund.
Oh, right. In Bitcoins.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, every refund.
Cash your refund quickly before it
before Cyprus
evaporates,
disappears.
before the exchange rate goes to hell. Anyway, that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. And no, the Beatles are not going to reform. That's for the chat room.
The Doors are, though. Funny kid.
No, they're not. Unless you saw that picture of Jim Morrison ethereally posing behind a fan in the Paris graveyard. That's streaming.
Is this the news
For
you
sure.
get from that Phillips guy on YouTube?
Sorry?
Is that the news you get from the Philip guy on YouTube?
No, this is like 10 years ago. There was a picture, I saw it last year, of...
The ghost?
Yeah, the ghost of Jim Morrison. You've seen that.
Yeah,
I don't
kinda
believe
remember
that...
now.
It's the reason why I don't believe in ghosts is that Jim Morrison was too drunk to ever want to hang out forever.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, what else? We got to wind this one up.
we didn't do Facebook Home, but I don't know anything about it, so except what we talked about last week.
Did they
It
release
won't
it?
install on any of my Android devices, so it's very sad. It's in the
I know.
store, but it only install on a very short list of Android devices, but not including mine.
Same as me, and I chose not to talk about it because last week somebody accused me on Twitter of obnoxiously plugging my own thing, and if I talk about Facebook Home, I can't.
I don't know
avoid-
what they're talking about. What does that say? Just dot me behind you.
You know, I'm sitting in my office. What am I going to tell you? I like all
Well,
my
there was
visits.
one product placement in last week's show that
Exactly.
you went right up to the edge and went right over it.
No, there was, but that's, you know,
Hey, it's,
that's
you know,
not
you're
my personality. I wasn't actually thinking about promoting it, to be honest. I was just talking about it.
No, you're passionate, and that's a good thing, right?
I hope so.
How's it going, by the way?
You know, I've just right now clicked send on 5,000 beta testers to add to the current 5,000, and we're at the scaling. We're testing all the scaling, and it's scary as hell.
All right,
We'll see.
Kevin, any final thoughts? And I don't mean that in any kind of serious way.
Jim
Well,
Morrison
that was
way.
the other project this week. There was the Google thing that they released, which was what should we do with your account when you die?
Oh yeah, but I don't know anything. What is that really?
It's kind of weird. So
Remember
basically,
that Saturday Night Live? What the hell is that?
they've set up this service so that you it's just like your last will and testament for your Google accounts, and you say who they should be emailed if you die, and then you set how long they should assume how long after you haven't logged in they should assume you're dead, and you know they said they'll SMS you and email you just to check are you still alive, and then
it's
if
an
not,
admin console for the afterlife.
Right.
You should
It's
say
not
that you
they'll send things
you
to
want
your
it to be
family,
published
whatever.
on Google Reader, and then they'll have to bring it back.
So it's
It
funny.
will actually export your Google Reader. Apparently, it's part of the Google Takeout thing. So the point is, it'll download all your Google accounts after you give up Google, and that includes when you die. But also, you can nominate. You have to write a last will and testament, store it in Google, and it'll be sent to people saying, "Hi, Kevin just died. Here's his Google account stuff," which is going to be kind of weird.
So, as funny as it may sound, and if everyone promises not to accuse me of being promotional, I will tell you that the inspiration behind Just Me was when my mum passed away. And that was 2 years ago. And her husband was a photographer, not my dad. They were married 30 years. And they had all these photographs on a Windows machine at home. Once he passed away, they were kind of trapped there, and my sisters got them. And it occurred to me as a Star Trek fan, now we've got Captain's Log, Stardate, blah, 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 potential with this thing. Why wouldn't it be possible for someone to, when they choose to, record their life, keep some of it private, some of it shared, some of it public, but after they pass away, deem who would inherit it? And that was the original idea like 2 years ago, and it's kind of moved on a bit since then, but that core still is in it. And I do think it isn't trivial to wonder whether when someone dies physically, their memory can exist digitally in a way that they would choose.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's,
I think that's right. I think that's
It's-
true.
it's a
What
sensible
happens
idea,
is
but
that-
it is very hard to work out how to deal with it. And it's interesting that Google is actually taking it on, because various people have said this feels very weird. I'm trying to write my last will and testament in Google.
That's weird, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking about that. There should be a service that's built on that. Your last will and testament. That thing. What happens when you're near death, and when you pull the tubes out and things like that. That stuff. That should be on there. I mean, this could be a platform for what happens to the assets that you collect over time. I think though that there's probably it weirds people out because they probably feel like they do. They use the internet for perhaps illicit things that could be released if there's no console that can adjust for that kind of thing. So I think that like Facebook definitely couldn't be used for that. But Google, I don't think anyone uses it in that way. but what happens to your Gmail and things like that? I mean, it should just be. I don't know. It just depends on the granularity of the console.
I think it should be called justonenorething.com.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet.com.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad we didn't get morbid with this at the end.
What was that creaking door sound effect? Is that someone else's? Is that someone's? You just
Wait,
died notification?
it's Jim Morrison.
Somebody in my office bringing me my pizza.
First, we had Kevin's Ravens at the beginning of the show, and then we ended with a door slamming shut. Nevermore.
Nevermore. Okay. Well, I've had fun. Click.
Gillmor Gang Z.
Yeah. I know. What was that related to? I saw something about that.
World War Z with
Oh,
Brad
that's
Pitt.
right. Oh, God.
Zombies.
There are no zombies. I hate to break it to you.
Not yet.
Oh, that was. You didn't see that photograph going around today? It said, "Here's your zombie apocalypse," and it's a whole 8 people in a row walking along, looking at their phones. One hand out with their phone.
It's already happened.
Right. This is what a failed identity program basically is what you're saying. It's like you capture in Keith's model all of your thoughts, and some private, some public, and then that a large section of the hard drive crashes.
Right. And then it gets sent to the FBI. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not worried about the FBI. They got their own problems. Okay.
Anonymous then.
I want to thank. We sort of did the final thoughts. That sort of devolved into this conversation that we just had.
Yeah.
Okay, now we could start over from the top. This is what happens when records go away. Is there's no middle, there's no other side. Wow, it's deep. It's deep.
Facebook Firefox just released version 20.
Good luck to them. Does anybody here use Firefox anymore?
I use it.
Got it on my tablet.
I use it when other things crash. It's my kind of browser of last resort when Flash crashes my Safari or Chrome doesn't like something.
Oh, that is one thing that I've been discovering. I don't know what started this, but Adobe Flash seems to have developed some sort of auto update capability, which I haven't been able to find the off switch for.
There's an Adobe control panel at least in Windows, that you can turn that on or off. But I've never seen a Flash update. That usually is embedded in the browser. I see Air updates that are quite annoying.
They do have Flash now, but you have to have updated to 11 point something or other for it to have kicked in. So if you're before that, you don't get it. But if you're on this 11 point whatever it is, it starts auto. It doesn't auto update, but it tells you should update, and you have to approve it.
Right. I want to thank Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, without which this show would not be here. It would be a little shimmering ghost over there on, well, I won't say it. And then I want to thank NewTek and their TriCaster. This show, by the way, has been due in large part in a video incarnation to the help and support of a guy who we never mention, and I thought that I would this time. Paul Scherer was responsible for much of the help in getting the studio together, and we have always appreciated it and continue to. I want to thank John Taschek. Thanks, John. I want to thank Keith Teare.
Thank you, everybody.
And Kevin Marks. Robert Scoble made an attempt to get on the show. He's barreling down the desert on the way to Coachella so that he can see the 50th reunion of all the people from Nirvana that we didn't care about to begin with. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching, and especially those who didn't. Bye-bye.